confirm that they can hear me.
Okay, oh yeah, I can hear you. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Please, if you can hear us very clearly, can you please go to the chat room, everybody? Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. It's afternoon where I am. For some of you, it might be morning. For some, it might be midnight. So let's not make an assumption it's afternoon for everybody. For the great people that are in Ghana, I'm certain that it's still morning for you, so it's definitely not afternoon for everybody. So good morning, good afternoon, wherever it is that you're seated as we speak. I trust you all very well. Please, if you go to the chat room, can you please just tell me three things, everybody? Your name, your organization, and what your expectations are from this session. Thank you very much, everyone that has been answering. Samuel, Adiola, Nana, Sheo, Moses, everybody, can you please tell me those two things? Or your name, because some people, you can't really tell their name from the alias that they're using on the call. So please, three key things: your name, your organization, and what exactly are your expectations. Your name, your organization, and what exactly are your expectations. Everybody, very quickly, if you do not mind, please, very quickly, do you have any specific expectations from this particular session, just so that whatever we're going to be saying, whatever we're going to be doing, will align to what your expectations are. Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you for that. Is that is here to learn, which is great. Excellent. That's beautiful. Who else here? Dr. Shonubi, good. It said sustainable solution services, research consultant. Brilliant. All right. Learn about corporate sustainability. Thank you very much. Ifeolua, thank you. CAPPLC. Brilliant. ESG. Professor Dakmomalade, Dakmo will give us his own Dakmo will give us his round it will give us his own thoughts and opinion when our lead speaker is done here today. Dakmo is also a practicing sustainability expert. We've also had him on one of our sustainability or SDG goals. So, Mr. Dakwa, thank you very much for being here. We welcome you here. David Olojo from Nigeria, hybrid. Okay, brilliant. So they are partners. It's great to have them here. Miriam is here from Miriam from Apex. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Moses is here. Okay, Gimla's environmental sustainability specialist or environmental specialist, right? Armstrong is here. Drake Masters. Okay, brilliant. Emily's here. Stambik, brilliant. All right, good. Osaze, Yonoma, Kofi. Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much. I'll take a couple of others. Sikota is here. Enhanced level of right, good. So our lead speaker, our keynote speaker, I'm certain is also on the call. Kobina is here, so I'm sure he's reading these same things just so that what we'll be presenting, he will ensure that it aligns. Jackie, welcome you here. Fidelity Bank, learn more about ESG and corporate sustainability. Peter, okay, from Zimbabwe. Great. It's great to have you here, Peter. Our very own Oni is here, our own very Esther, Samuel, and the team that puts this entire sessions, a team of researchers and consultants who put this event together. Thank you very much. All right, so it's great to have everybody here. I will get on with it. Samuel says a PhD candidate. Wow, okay. Samuel, that's interesting. Well done. Well done. Okay, good. I've got one more question for everybody, and then we will run with this. One more question for everybody. So, what do we think ESG is? I mean, that's probably one of the areas of work that in modern day is is completely misunderstood by a lot of people, right? So a lot of people, I mean, the interpretation that people have for ESG is very interesting. So a few people, can you quickly tell me from your perspective, from where you sit, what do you think ESG is? Very quickly, everyone. What do you think ESG? What do you think it is? From where you sit, what is your own interpretation of ESG? What do you think it means? Right, and I like that. So thank you very much. Dr. Sheunubi, thank you very much. Set of standards, right. Okay, good. Okay, brilliant, everybody. So I hope you all can go to the chat room. Dr. Shehu has given a very interesting perspective to it. Miriam, all right, tool is a risk management tool, and I like that. You see what I'm saying, right? ESG is like an elephant. People, depending on the portion of the elephant that you're holding on to, you're going to get different interpretations from everybody, right? Samuel has also said what he thinks it is. We're going to check out business impact the planet, treat people. Okay, Mr. Okay, good. Mr. Dakwamadi, a tool for implementation and to measure sustainability. Rachel, framework for assessing performance and practices. Yes, Emmanuel, measurable metrics, sustainability of a business. Brilliant. I like this. I like this. Who else has any thoughts, any opinion with regards to what exactly is ESG, right? Peter, environmental social governance framework helps organizations manage material issues affecting them. Good. So once again, and you can keep it coming, but once again, as I had mentioned to you, ESG is one of those areas of work that, you know, is subject to a lot of interpretation and idea, almost dare say misinterpretation. Are we all together? A lot of interpretation and also a lot of misinterpretation. But today we'll share our own thoughts, our opinion. Mr. Kobina here is a practicing ESG professional at a global level, and we're grateful to him that he has taken the time to join us here today. So I have a quick presentation. I'll do this very quickly, and then I will come back to you at some point in time. I hope you all can see my screen. So first is, what does ESG mean? Environmental, social, and corporate governance. And our organization is A4S. It's a pleasure to have you all join us here. We're primarily an audit company. Primarily, we audit and provide advisory services, but primarily we're an audit company, and we do various types of ISO standards. So our specialization is around ISO standards, and we provide core audit and advisory services for all these areas of work. My friends and colleagues and partners, some of them are here on the call, some of our clients are here. A lot of companies will do a lot of implementation, but we will provide a lot of advisory and also audit services tied to these standards. So everybody, once again, in the chat room, if you had to pick three ISO standards that you would like to specialize in, if you had to pick three, everybody go to the chat room. If I was going to give you free training and certification and exam and all that, tied to three, if you had to pick three areas on my screen that you want to be known for globally, can you go to the chat room? Everybody, I want to read what people have to say. What will be the top three you as a person you will want to be known globally for? Quickly, everybody in the chat room, what are the top three you will want to be known for globally? Quickly, everyone. Let's make this very quick. Just give me the numbers. So for some people, they'll say, I want to be some kind of anti-bribery expert. I want to be a whistleblowing professional. So everybody on the call, quickly, make it quick. Give me your top three that you want to build your expertise. Thank you very much, Titus. Environment, health and safety, and risk. So Titus has picked his own. Emmanuel says quality, health and safety, and environment. Miriam was okay. Good. Please keep it coming. Peter has picked his own too, right? Mr. Dapomalade, okay, you're talking Mr. Dapo speaking the ones that is probably a global is a not probably is a global expert in a lot of those things already, but now he's picking the additional ones he wants to add to his portfolio. All right, thank you very much. So okay, just give me the numbers. Give me the numbers. Everybody, give me the numbers. Is the numbers that I want. I just want you to give me the numbers. Abigail has picked hers. Abigail wants to be an audit expert, a corporate governance and quality. Wow. Rachel, David Olojo has also given me ease. Yanuma giving me Paul. Enoch. Enoch wants to be an expert in this particular ESG. Wow, that's brilliant, right? Jackie is also here. Jackie Mensa, right, corporate governance, compliance, whistleblowing. Esinam, I gave you the opportunity for three. Why are you picking just one? Why just one? Ifeolu has also picked, Emily has also picked, Toby has also picked. Brilliant, right? I mean, this is good. This is really good so that you will know where you should spend a lot of your time and attention going forward. But that's good, everyone. Brilliant. Thank you very much. So, I mean, these are the kinds of things we do, and it will be our pleasure to support you in your work, in your organization, in your journey as becoming a global professional. All right. So, everybody, I want you to take a minute to read this because this is my submission. In fact, it's so important that I had to write it twice. When my team put the one on the left together, I said it isn't clear enough that I wanted bigger, brighter, bolder. So they decided to do it again. So it's so important that we've written it twice. Everybody, it's so important that we've decided to write it twice. And this is my overall submission. So what I also want in the chat room, when you finished reading this, do you agree or do you disagree, everybody? Tell me, tell me, tell me. Tell me your own thoughts. When you finished reading what I put on the screen, do you agree or do you disagree? What are your thoughts? What's your opinion? Do you agree or do you disagree? Do you agree or do you disagree? All right. So you can then share your own opinion. I mean, this is not like a yes or no type answer. You can just share your thoughts, right? You can say, well, I agree, I disagree, because I mean, this is the thing that has always confused me over the last, let me say, maybe pre-COVID, right? That I started working along uh, uh, these lines, right? So pre-COVID, the thing that always, was a challenge for me was people will come and they say they need to put together a report for ESG. And every time they say that to me, the next question will be that, have you implemented ESG? And the people will say no. A lot of my colleagues that are here, they know that. They'll say they haven't done anything around it, but they want a report they can submit to an investor, to the board, to a bank, to some international partners, whatever. They just want a report. Now, I mean, I've always wondered how I'm meant to magically come up with a report for an organization that has not intentionally or deliberately implemented any of these three standards, because the word ESG is actually type 2, 3 ISO standards primarily. So, I mean, you can share your thoughts in the chat room. And this for a long time, this has always been my opinion. For a very long time, this has always been where my opinion. So when they put together a committee, one of the ISO committees to start to look at this particular thing, I was so interested in it. So I decided to join the committee. So I've been working with the committee, providing my own thoughts, my own opinion, and also, just reading through, just uh, just reading through and joining the different drafts of this particular document that came out as IWA 48. So, I mean, from last year, maybe throughout the whole of last year, one draft after another, if you've ever joined any of those ISO committees, and we looked at all, I mean, I've been following, working with the team, providing my own thoughts and going through the different drafts. And that's what the conclusion was, that, there's nothing called, this is it, everybody. Everybody can go, you can download this. So somebody should please drop this link in the chat room. When they finished it, ISO standards are sold. Am I right? So ISO standards, they're actually sold. You have to buy an ISO standard, except you're lucky and you get a free one that is available online. ISO standards in themselves, they're actually sold. Okay, so everybody, you can download it. You can read it through if you have the time, and if you have the interest in similar type things. You can you can read this whole thing through. So it's available. So please drop the link in the chat room, or just go online. Just type IWA 48 ISO standard. It will bring it to this page, and all of you can download it. They made it free for download. So they made it free for download as it is. And inside of that document, you will see this, which has always been my opinion. I mean, I've worked on ISO standards for at least the last decade, or dozen years, auditing different organizations. I'm certain that in my lifetime, I must have audited maybe 200 organizations or more on various ISO standards. So so this has always been my opinion. Like, if you don't do something specifically for environment, for social, and for governance, then you can't really say that you're doing ISO, you're doing ESG. And so most people think ESG is about climate. If you're one of those people, you think, oh, ESG, they only see it from the climate perspective, or they only see it from the environmental perspective, or they only see it from the social perspective, right? Or they only see it from the corporate governance perspective. So what I've seen is that people, and that's why they wrote this standard. I don't have a lot of time on my hands. I want to bring Kobina onto the call. At some point in time, I'm still going to hold a full day training on this, or maybe 2 days of training specifically on this standard, and I'm going to break it down, and I'm going to show people how to adopt it within their organization. If you stay in touch with us, you will see it. It's not going to be for the general public. It will be for practitioners of ESG. But today is not the day I'm going to do that. Today is Kobina is here to give us his own global perspective. He works for the World Bank. He has an international view of what this is in itself. I have a very ISO and implementation or audit type view, but he has an overall overarching view of this, and he will share his own thoughts and his own opinion in that document that I told all of you to download. You will see even KPIs. So there are 3 standards that, as I said before, you need to be great with them with the 14,000 and some of the other additional ones to 14,000. So, for example, in a couple of weeks, we're going to be doing something on what's on climate change, right? And a couple of those ones, we did it last year. We're going to do it again. If you also see social, I'm always doing social with my colleagues in hybrid, which is ISO 26,000. And on the corporate governance side, I also have a couple of organizations that I'm reviewing things for on the corporate governance side, tied to KAMA in Nigeria and tied to the different Company and Allied Matters Act, even in Ghana in itself. So this is the challenge, everybody. And I go back here for those that are just coming in. If you don't implement these 3 standards, then you're just paying lip service to ESG. Whether it's a bank, whatever kind of organization that it is, telecommunications, oil and gas company, it doesn't matter the kind of company that it is. If you're not deliberate about ISO 14001, ISO 26,000, and the 37,000 also, then you're not really doing ESG. It's important that you get these 3 standards right in your own organization. I will round up in a minute. When I'm going to be doing the entire day training or 2 days, I'm going to go through this whole thing, because this is the whole standard. I'm going to take my time. I'm going to show you samples. I'm going to show you templates. I'm going to show you many things that you might want to take into keen consideration when you're implementing this standard internally, when you're doing that. And my job is to enable organizations to adopt this. My job is to enable consulting firms to also implement this appropriately so that at the end of the day, they can call us as an independent and objective organization to come to review what has been implemented within the organization, and of course to also provide a lot of training services. So pretty much this is it. I don't want to take too much of our time. I want to bring in Mr. Kobina. Please follow him on on LinkedIn. Uh, he's wearing his brilliant. I also have one. I'm going to go and look for the picture. I actually have two. What am I talking about? I'm going to look for my own picture of my smock so that I would also show everybody that I'm part Ghanaian, so to speak. And I have Samuel and Abigail and some of my colleagues who are based out of Accra. So everybody, a round of applause for Mr. Kobina that has graciously agreed to come in here in a minute. He said he will be with us in a couple of minutes. So let me just, he's a big man and he's held at work. So that's fine. So please, you can look for him on LinkedIn. You can look for him on LinkedIn so that you can join in and you will see many things. But let me quickly speak about this, right? So everybody, just in a couple of minutes, I'll speak about this. So if you look at it from the very beginning, there's a concept of what they have called the principles. So there are a couple of principles. So first is that even if you and I look at those principles, and maybe you should open that particular document, everybody. Everybody, I hope you can download this document for the people that are just coming in. It's good when you come for these things that you come in early. There's no value when you've missed 20 minutes of everything that I have said already. You've already missed a lot of things. So if you're just coming in at 11:20 Ghanaian time, 12:20 Nigerian time, you've already missed a lot of the key things that I have said. So once again, everybody download this document. So if you've downloaded this document, can you come to the chat room? Can you come to the chat room? Can you come to the chat room? Everybody, and let me know. Just say I've downloaded it. Just say that in the chat room, everybody. Right? Okay, so if you've downloaded it, just come to the chat room and tell me. Okay. I like Paul. Paul said, how do you report on what has not been implemented? It's pretty much like somebody saying that, can you give me an information security report? Right? And then you ask the person that says that I'm doing information security well. And then you ask the person, have you done anything about information security? And then the person tells you, no, I haven't done anything at all. Then you need to ask the person, how on earth do you think that you're going to be able to implement information security? So this is a big deal. No, the document is free online, everybody. Nobody really needs to send you the link, but the link has all actually been put in the chat room. But it's, yeah, so thank you very much. Miriam said she has got. Dapo says he hasn't. Miriam, Enoch, Adiola, Lucky, David, Samuel, brilliant. Paul, Mukuro, Titus, Samuel, brilliant. A lot of people have downloaded it because that's the key thing that you need to have, right? That's the key thing that you need to have. And it's, as I said before, the core of that document comes down to these three standards. The core of this whole thing comes down to the implementation of these three standards. That's the core of the whole thing. That's the core of the whole thing. These three standards. And so if I come back here, I've tried to summarize the entire standard here. I've tried to summarize the entire standard here. It's got some principles. And then if I'm coming to review you as an organization, I'm going to be asking, I want to find out whether you've implemented the principles. I'm going to want to understand if you've taken into keen consideration if you're doing risk management relative to ESG, right? If you're doing risk management relative to ESG. Sorry. If you're doing a risk and opportunity, and if you follow ISO 31000, you have to do not just the threats, but you also have to do the opportunities. So you're seeing both the negative and also the positive. If you get to accountability and transparency, there's some key things that the requirements are so deep, right? And then if you go to 1.4, it tells you about identification and engagement of interested parties. So, and these interested parties, if you know anything about ISO standards, you know that there are two key interested parties or groups. It's internal and external. So we're talking about your shareholders, we're talking about your regulators, we're talking about your customers, we're talking about your suppliers. We're talking about those external entities, but we're also talking about internal entities. And that is why you can't really say you're doing ESG without the S that is in the middle. And most organizations have not done anything relative to the S. That ISO 26000, which is in the middle, people haven't done anything relative to it. Okay, so anyways, I don't want to go into this. If you look at number 2, you see ISO 14000 environmental. If you look at number 3, you see social, which is the ISO 26000. And if you look at number 4 on my screen, you see that is 37340, which is corporate governance. And I just had a review with the board of an organization recently around this. My point to you is, if you haven't done 2, 3, 4 and followed the standards, then it is going to be impossible for you to really say that you want an ESG report. And you must have done these 3 things appropriately. Once again, the ESG is a journey, right? Everybody, for the people who are just coming in, and I know that Mr. Kobina is on the call now. Mr. Kobina, I don't know whether you were here initially, but I was saying that from my perspective, if you haven't implemented these 3 standards, and I mean not mistakenly, not by chance, I mean that you're intentional and you're deliberate about the implementation of these 3 standards. It's only when you have done that you and I can then be talking about getting some kind of ESG report using the GRI standard. But if you haven't done that, I don't know exactly how you're going to do it. So once again, thank you very much, everyone. I'm not the chief speaker for today. It's Mr. Kobina. I like his picture. I like his schmuck. I'm also going to look for mine as it is. So follow him on LinkedIn. I'm sure he would accept your request. And you can see that even when it comes to the ISO 26000 that I was saying that a lot of people struggle with, he's definitely an expert in that particular area. He's also an environmental management expert. So with a round of applause, please welcome Mr. Kobina. He's one of those people that when you look at his experience looks like the experience of 100 people put together. So it's brilliant that you have someone like him. Please give him a round of applause. Mr. Kobina, thank you very much for agreeing to do this. Indeed, it's our pleasure to have you here. Thank you very much. Please take over, sir.
Thank you, Orlando. I've actually been laughing my heart out throughout, listening to all the great things that you speak about me. It's interesting. I've been enjoying listening to you. I mean, for the past 30 minutes. So I was actually wondering whether I had anything extra to add, seeing you already have a very detailed plan in place to, take people through the standard, those who are available and have the time and really are yearning to know a lot more about what the standard, represents and entails. So at this point, you would realize from my slides that you've actually spoken to a lot of the things I want to say. So I'm going to make things quite simple and straightforward, and then we can probably have further discussions. We can take questions from our listeners and participants, and then we can probably together, the two of us, we can probably help answer their questions. But I perfectly agree with some of the points that you made, which is that ESG ought to be a culture. It ought to be a culture. It ought to be something that we are passionate about. It ought to be something that you are doing. Now, in the doing, you are not required to do everything under the earth. And when you look at standards, standards are meant to provide guidance. So the expectation is not that because you are applying a particular standard, you necessarily must answer to every element of that standard. No, that is not possible. And that's why for most of you on this call, I know quite a couple of you, I know you are all in this area. I know some of you are risk managers, some of you are ESG experts, and you've been at this for quite a while. So I know that you know the concept of materiality. So for me, materiality is the one thing I try not to hide. It's something I like to highlight at all times. You may hear a discussion that seems to start from A and end at Z. What we are doing basically is just to introduce you to the expectations or the requirement of that standard. It is not to say that everything we say must necessarily be applicable to your business, to your small business. And I know most of us are handling our own small businesses where you get to hear things sometimes and you're wondering whether all of these requirements really are possible for you. So let me quickly share my screen and then I'll go to a few of the slides that I guess would also add on to what Orlando has just shared with us. So let me quickly do that. All right. Orlando, could you please confirm if you can see my slide?
Oh, clearly, absolutely, clearly. Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much.
thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So we'll be quick with this. Seeing that you've laid a great foundation and the fact that I would probably prefer that we do a little bit more of discussion. So probably the only thing I would want to say here is that these slides will be shared. So we can always look at it. And in fact, my plan was to bamboozle everybody. And then in the end, I will tell you that this document is actually available for free, unlike the other ISO standards that you need to purchase. This one is very much free, and I'm happy that Orlando has already directed you to the link that gives you access to the document. So at this point, I'm unable to bamboozle you again because you already know, and you already know that I'm going to be speaking from a document that you already have access to. So I would quickly go to some of the slides. So I'm happy to also know and to learn that Orlando has actually been working on some of these standards for the past 10 years. So he can probably speak to some of these things much better. But then just for somebody who doesn't know much about the ISOs, they are basically standards. They are basically international in nature, and they are basically meant to help improve upon the quality of the products and the services that we provide as organizations, as entities, as bodies. And also, if you look at most of the requirements, they are meant to establish some level of efficiency in our operations. And I mean, you all know most of the industries are covered by ISO standards, and so they are quite cross-cutting, right? Now, the difference I wanted to point out here is that you are able to access this document for free, and you see IWA in the name, ISO IWA 48, because IWA basically means International Workshop Agreement. Basically, what the difference is that when you look at the default way of going about the development of international standards, you have international technical committees. They have processes that involve countries, and so for most of the standards that you do know about, the process is such that your standardization authority in your country, in this case, in the case of Ghana, you have GSA, which is the Ghana Standards Authority, which is usually involved in the development of some of these international standards, right? But when it comes to the International Workshop Agreement, basically you have industry experts, you have other stakeholders who are brought together, to put some of these guidance notes together. So that's why you see IWA in the name, International, Workshop Agreement. And in most cases, those standards that are generated as a result of activities of International Workshop Agreement are meant to be free, unlike the other ones that the most of the other ones that you really need to spend so much to buy. So I'll quickly move on. I also had a plan to take you through some of the existing, ISO standards that help organizations to be sustainable in their practices. So the plan was to start from the known before we go to the unknown. But as it is, I also noticed from the chat, and thank you, Orlando, for that. I noticed from the chat that people really know about this. So people are already familiar with 14,001. They are familiar with greenhouse accounting and verification standards. They are familiar with the carbon footprint of products standard. So I would move on. For those, the few ones who might never have heard about these things, the slides will be shared so you can do a little bit more reading about it. So that was under the environmental component, which Orlando spoke to. Under the social component, these are some already existing standards that I also thought might be of interest to you. So ISO 26000, of course, is probably the best known. Then you have ISO 45001, 30415, 10018, and then 2121. So I don't know how many of us on this call are involved in event management, but trust me, ISO has a standard for everything under the sun. And these are things that, it's good to look at, it's good to, to study and to try and understand what the gaps are in your existing practices so you can, sort of upgrade, the quality of the event management services that you provide. Then the governance comes in, a number of them that have to do with anti-bribery management, compliance management, risk management, information security. So even before the standard that was it launched December last year, there were already ISO standards, specifically dealing with specific issues that if you pay attention to, it gives you some good understanding, of the area that we're looking at. Let me quickly move on again. Then also there already existing standards which are industry specific, so not necessarily environment, social, or governance, but these were developed specifically to address issues within particular industries. So we have some examples here also for your guidance, things relating to energy management, carbon footprint, sustainable events, sustainable procurement. So I will also try and jump this one because in our earlier discussions, some reference has been made to these. So basically, as Orlando also said, when we talk about ISO IWA 48, we are looking at a framework. We are looking at a framework that helps organizations to adopt sustainable practices in order to enable them, mainstream environmentally responsible processes into their activities. And like any other ISO standard that these are frameworks, right? These are frameworks. These are set of principles. These are high-level structures that the standard would promote or provide you with. In each of these standards, they don't give you specific procedures that that you ought to use in your organization. What they would do is to provide the principles, they'll provide the guidance so that you can then look at these and then adapt them to suit your scope of activities or the nature of the organization that you run. So it is like that for every ISO standard. And of course, they also provide you with some tools that would enable you to integrate some of these principles and to establish the corresponding procedures for achieving the purpose of that standard, right? So as far as ISO 1WA48 is concerned, it was to, provide that overarching framework with principles that enable businesses to integrate sustainability into their core strategies. And I'm sure everybody on this call would agree that there's a lot of talk about ESG, in the past few years. Everybody talks about ESG. But if you dive much deeper, you are likely to realize that in most cases, the passion for integrating ESG exists, the excitement about ESG exists. But when you try to go deep, as we say here in Ghana and in Nigeria, if you try to go deep, you realize that people are struggling with the exact processes for integrating these principles into their businesses. And that is what ISO IWA 48 seeks to achieve. And that is what you would find in the document that you have been directed to. So there's nothing I'm going to be saying that you would not have heard before. So since this is a standard that's supposed to help you mainstream sustainability activities into your business operations, then it stands to think that all it does is to promote sustainable practices. So yes, if you guessed right. That's something that I'm sure everybody can assume, right? Then of course, we are looking at corporate accountability. If you do not have the processes, if you do not have the procedures to guide you in integrating these principles that are well captured in the standard, then you will not have that, that framework that enables you to be accountable. So accountability is a very important, part of this whole discussion. Then, of course, we mentioned the tools that it provides to enable you measure performance. So as an organization, you are doing something right. You are implementing some processes, some principles. And because you don't have that structure to help you put things in the right place, it becomes difficult to even measure your performance. So the question is, or what usually is said is that how do you monitor how do you monitor or how do you measure when you have not documented? So this standard actually provides you with the tools and the guidelines that enable you to, to retain, to maintain and to retain your data, relating to your practices, your sustainability practices, so that you are then in a position to measure and report your sustainability performance. So this standard helps you to do that. So sustainability and corporate responsibility. So we've already made mention of sustainable practices. We're talking about, the point at which you are now, empowered to positively contribute to society. The standard also helps you to be environmentally responsible. And these are things that I know everybody on this call would appreciate. What I probably want to highlight is the bit of the standard that helps you to be more transparent, in your practices through your stakeholder engagement, planning processes and strategies. So stakeholder engagement, is seen to actually happen at 5 different levels. So there's the level where you're basically informing. There's a level where you are basically just consulting. There's also that level where you are empowering your stakeholders. Sorry. And at that level, you are being deliberate even in how and the manner that you conduct stakeholder engagement. You put in processes that enable those engagements to be meaningful. You've also put in processes that enable your stakeholders to actually influence the design or the nature of your practices. That is the ultimate level of stakeholder engagement that you want to attain as a business, as an organization. And that's the principles to enable you do this are all captured clearly in this ISO IWA standard. So it provides you with that guidance that helps you to enhance your transparency and to be more inclusive. So for all of you on this call, I know inclusion is also another area of interest for you. Today, you cannot be an ESG enthusiast and not know much about inclusivity and not know much about DEI, diversity, equality, and inclusion. But of course, depending on your environment, depending on your organization, you define what DEI is to you. And that's why I keep stressing on the principle of materiality. What may be, we are Nigerians and Ghanaians, and probably I think I've seen other countries also available on this call. But as Africans, I think that we can still hold on to the concept of diversity, equality or equity and inclusion and define it in our own way that is meaningful and helpful for society. So what might be DEI to an American society might be different from what it means to us as Ghanaians and Nigerians. But the point I want to make is that inclusion is very important. And you cannot do ESG without, caring about issues of inclusion. And so transparency in communication also becomes another important aspect that the standard looks at. What are you communicating? And I want to believe there are communication experts on this call who probably even know more about communication than I do. But I would probably want to, in this instance, I probably would want to flag the risk of greenwashing because we are doing ESG. And greenwashing has everything to do with the kind of communication that you do. Now, the kind of communication that you do that enables you to avoid greenwashing has everything to do with your processes, with what you are actually doing on the ground. And what you are doing on the ground is what Orlando and the team is going to help you with if you have the time to subscribe to their trainings, because it is what you do on the ground, what you do as part of your processes is what would inform the outcomes. And it's when you have great outcomes, when you have to communicate, you know what your feet is on, you know what you're standing on. And so you are not necessarily engaging yourself in flowery languages. You are speaking to things that you have done. You are speaking to things that you are able to measure, that you are able to report on. And doing those things doesn't come by just being hopeful or by just being excited about ESG. You need to put things on the ground. You need to put things on paper. And for you to do that, you need people to guide you. And that's why we have Orlando and his team and the likes of them available to guide you through that process. So let's not just see communication and see it as, just something that everybody can speak to. You can't speak to what you haven't done. And of course, you would agree with me that for any ISO standard, there is always that bit of continuous improvement and innovation. So really, I'm not telling you anything new. These principles cut across continuous improvement and innovation. And it is important because it is critical for organizations that are, interested in enhancing their sustainability practices and being effective in what they do. So today, if you didn't know, continuous improvement cuts across every ISO standard. Now let's look at a few implementation strategies, knowing that we have just 10 minutes left. Let me see. So yeah, so now how do we align corporate strategy with sustainability goals? I'm looking at it in terms of integration, prioritization, and then resource allocation. So just as they mean, if you are interested in sustainability, then you need to really find a way of doing the integration. This standard helps you or provides you with some guidance as to how to do the integration. But like I said, if you want it well done, you need the help of an expert. Prioritizing sustainability. How are you lining corporate strategies with sustainability goals to empower your organization, to prioritize eco-friendly initiatives and responsible practices? And having said all the beautiful and the wonderful things, are you putting your mouth or are you putting your money where your mouth is? That's what I mean by resource allocation. So these are things that are highlighted in the standard. Also highlighted is how you engage leadership and employees as part of your strategy. So we all know the importance of leadership commitment to successfully implementing any strategy at all. And in our specific case, we are looking at implementing your ESG strategy, your sustainability strategy. How important is the role of leadership commitment? I'm sure you would agree with me that it's probably the highest factor that you probably would have in this whole process. How do you engage your employees? How do you develop a culture of sustainability? So all these are sort of highlighted in the standard and the necessary principles provided. How do you measure and monitor performance? We all know how important measuring is. What is that system in place to enable you monitor? How do you adjust your strategies beyond monitoring? All these are available in the standard. We all know that there are benefits to doing this. So let me jump that. Enhance corporate reputation, the things that you know already, operational efficiencies and cost savings, which you know already. And for most risk managers on this call, I'm sure you always are interested in compliance with regulations and standards. It's very important for enhanced credibility and to mitigate your risk. All these are guidance to all these is provided in the standard. If there were time, I was going to find, some specific cases that we could share for people who have organizations that have really adopted, strategies for implementing ISO IWA 48 and have been able to demonstrate, tailored approaches to sustainability. But I guess that's something that if you want to know, you must join Orlando's class. So lessons learned from leading companies, these are things that he would be speaking to as well. Now, when we talk about innovative practices in corporate sustainability, what's the role of innovation? And what is the commitment that you would see in ISO IWA 48? And what we refer to as inspiring adoption. How do we highlight innovative practices that can inspire other organizations to adopt similar sustainable approaches? So here I'm basically asking questions that we can all discuss. How can we highlight innovative practices that can inspire other organizations to adopt similar sustainability approaches, fostering a collective effort? Because we all know that the problems of this world will not be solved by one organization. In fact, the role of government is way beyond what we would do individually as organizations. However, we all also do agree and accept that, little drops of water make a mighty ocean, something that we were always told when we were in primary school, which tells you the power of collective effort. How do we share our success stories? Those of you on the call who are already doing something in this space, how do we share some of these good stories so that we can encourage others to join the fight against climate change and related disasters? So that would be my last slide. That would be my last slide. I would think that at this point, there might be a few questions that we would want to look at quickly together with Orlando. Thank you very much. Let me stop
Thank
sharing.
you, Kobina. Thank you very much. That was
Great, great,
very
great, great.
excellent. I apologize. I didn't know one of my team members confused me. That's why they said that you have a meeting. So I thought they were referring to 12 Nigerian time. So I just got confused because I didn't know you were even on the call. I would have stopped much earlier.
Oh, okay,
So I
okay.
apologize. It was one of the messages from one of the team members that got me completely confused. So
No, no, Lando, that's fine. That is fine because I like the fact that both presentations spoke to each other. So it's totally fine. It's
good.
totally
So
fine.
some of
Yes.
the some of the questions that people have asked,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
some of them were texting to me, and others, please put your questions in the chat room. So maybe you want to speak quickly around some of these things, but I'm mindful of your time. How long more do you have here?
Oh, we can do some 10 more minutes. We can
Okay,
do some 10
brilliant.
more minutes.
So
Yes.
any other person, if you've got any other question, please drop them. But some people have sent some of these things to me as it is. So
Okay.
Compare, yes, is over to you. Please go ahead.
All right. So for my practice, I think that people are struggling, organizations are struggling with ESG because one, people complain about the multiplicity of standards within this area. And it even get worse when you are looking at the reporting standards that people have to deal with. But you see, I do not think it should be a problem. Why would you want to concern yourself with every particular reporting standard or requirement that exists? Why don't you do a good assessment of where you are now as an organization and you have experts to help you do that so that you can look at probably the sector within which your organization operates, and with the advice of an expert, they are able to point you to standards, reporting standard that enable you, to really bring out your story. So I do agree that when you have multiple standards, sometimes it brings about confusion. But if you really study these standards, you'd also realize that most of these standards, for except a few that are, all encompassing, there are others that look at specific things, that have specific themes, that concentrate on specific aspects of your operational efficiencies. So let's not get confused, and let's not that lead us to struggling with ESG. But I think basically, primarily, people are also struggling because we are still struggling with the concept of materiality. I would not be able to explain that on this call because I know Orlando would take care of that. If you avail yourself, how do we define African inclusion and diversity? That's going to be interesting. I think that standards are more meaningful when they are situated or contextualized, when they sit within our cultural beliefs and norms. Even though we are supposed to have international standards and all of that, you would realize that the concept of materiality, once again, also helps you to narrow down to what is material to you. I think that inclusion and diversity is really broad. It can, I mean, we all know, usually when we mention inclusion and diversity, I think there's one particular thing that comes to our mind, LGBT plus all those things that we keep hearing. Yes, but I think that in my country, Ghana, the levels of poverty that we see do not, I mean, I do not think people are really concerning themselves with issues of LGBT plus because they are more, more pressing issues. When people are poor and can't put food on their table, they are more interested in. So for us, I may be wrong. I don't know who disagrees with me on the call, but I don't think it is so much of an issue. So when I am talking about, so as a Ghanaian, when I want to talk about inclusion and diversity, I want to look at a country like Nigeria. I want to look at the sheer size of the population of Nigeria. Look at the sheer number of tribes that cut across Nigeria. And so if I'm looking at diversity, I'll be more interested in how organizations are open to recruiting people from the diverse groupings that we have across Africa, across Nigeria, across, Ghana. I think that would be more meaningful to us as Africans than other issues that people might be, more interested in. I do not think so. I think that materiality helps us to scope out what is useful and what is important for any organization. And the organization must determine, you must go through that systematic process to determine what is material to you. Now, what will an organization like World Bank looking at to validate that an organization is truly doing ESG? Okay, so the World Bank, let me quickly do this. The World Bank has a very interesting way of working. So the World Bank Group is made up of 5 members. IFC is a group member. IFC deals with private sector. And so you'd realize that IFC has been at the forefront of most of the activities that have been carried out in terms of sustainability, right? And so IFC has collaborated with a lot of institutions. In fact, ISO is as a result of collaboration effort of the World Bank through IFC. So you can actually go back into the history of ISO, you would see the huge role that the World Bank has played. So what we do as a bank is to look at those, strategic partnerships and stuff like that to promote some of these, ESG topics. Now, if you look at the E&S, for instance, the World Bank has its environmental and social standards that deal comprehensively with issues of the environment and society. It has its governance mechanisms as well that it does for countries. So if anybody's interested, you can also read about CPIA, Country Policy and Institutional Assessment. It's a very deep governance, assessment that the bank does for every member country, periodically. So the IFC, for instance, also, leads the Sustainable Banking and Finance Network, and they are doing huge things, right? So the bank is already in that space, but most of the things it does are at a strategic, partnership level, where they are able to rope in a lot more people through the work that they do. Yes, reference to sample case studies and examples. We don't have time to that. So for that, so I'm trusting you would avail yourself for Orlando's class, and then Orlando will share those real case studies with you. The difference between ESG, corporate responsibility, and sustainability. That's interesting. So I think that they all speak to the same thing. In fact, I think that if you look at the trajectory of these discussions that we have, there was a point in time, it was corporate social responsibility. Now they talk about corporate social investment. There has been a lot of there's been a lot of evolution of the terms and the scope, but you would realize that ESG and sustainability are more encompassing, right? Now, ESG, I always say, helps you to define the metrics. Sustainability is the bigger concept. ESG helps you to define and to measure your sustainability practices and innovations and commitment and all of that. So when we talk about sustainability, we all know the common definition that we all go to, ability of present generations to, use resources without compromising the ability of future generations to, meet their own needs, right? So that is something that I know we all know. And now, sustainability cuts across every sector and everything that we do. But when ESG comes in, because it helps you to now put your sustainability activities into the right, sectors or boxes. And it helps you to now define those metrics that enable you to measure your ESG performance or your sustainability performance. So for me, there's really no big difference between ESG and sustainability. One deals with the metrics, one deals with the overarching, concept of what one needs to be doing to be sustainable. Can IWA 48 replace 14,000, 26,000, 37,000? That's an interesting question. Let me say that I am not an expert in most ISO standards, so I would defer this question to my senior Orlando. But I think that from what I know, IWA 48 basically is looking at that, overarching framework. It's giving you those principles, how you can integrate or mainstream sustainability activities into your processes, into your products, into all those things that you do. But with the understanding I have, if I go to 14,000 now gives me, comprehensive guidance as to how I can meet my commitment. 26,000 gives me comprehensive social, guidance as to how I can meet my social commitment. So that's how I see this. I would not say that IWA 48 will necessarily replace. I think what it does is to help you integrate. So previously you had them as separate ISO standards. What this one does is to help you integrate them. But in integrating, some things might be lost out. And so to get the details, you must go to the specific standard. Thought on ESG within the manufacturing industry. That's interesting. That's big. Um, But I think that we would agree that the manufacturing industry, contributes. I mean, it's one of those sectors that contribute the most to, GAGs, right? And in fact, some of the sectors are more polluting than others. And I think that so let me shock you. So ESG for me is that concept that people are using to rally a lot of organizations around to do the right things. But seriously, most manufacturing industries are regulated, and regulations in the past had always had E elements, maybe a few S elements. The S elements probably were not as pronounced as the E element. So when I talk about ESG, I don't talk about it as if it's some new, some new requirement. I see it as that framework that helps you to now consolidate all the things you are already doing as an organization, and helps you to now, benchmark with international practices, helps you to identify the gaps, and helps you to become more, more comprehensive in your practices. So ESG for me within the manufacturing industry started a long time ago. Companies that are well regulated have perfect governance structures in place. Industries that are well regulated have good e-commitment. For the S, I think, as I said earlier, there's always been a lot of shortfalls in that sector. So what ESG now is doing is that put them together, see them as a comprehensive framework, let the mindset change from looking at things in silos, look at them together as one thing, and together use it to improve upon your actions and your processes. So yes, ESG within the manufacturing industry is very important. And trust me, when it comes to the real work, it wouldn't be the talking I'm doing. It will be those of you on this line who are able to do carbon measurement, who are able to do GHG emissions measurement and reporting. Because having said all these wonderful things I'm saying, when it comes to the real things to do, it is each and every one of us on this call who has one, specific area of competence or the other, pulling these experiences and competencies together so we can generate the kind of report that helps us to understand what our commitment and our successes have been in terms of our environmental, social, and governance performance. Approaches to get executives on board with ESG. I think that is where a lot of work needs to be done. I mean, without leadership buy-in, it is very difficult. And so they would always tell you that you need an ESG champion within management, or you need an ESG champion within leadership. How do you do that? I've always said that, first of all, start with the business case. If you come selling a concept to me as a businessman and I don't see the business case in what you are saying, I don't see how it inures to my profitability. I don't see how it helps me to be better positioned for investment and for, high grade clients. then I would not be interested, even as an environmental person. I'm sure I might not really show much interest. But if I know that all that you are preaching to me can actually, bring me some returns, I will listen to you. So for me, always start from that level. You can always go into the technical things after they have bought into the plan, but it is something that they need to understand. The business case for me is what you must start with. Should public institutions be implementing or adopting ESG? Yes. I mean, I think everybody should. Everybody should be implementing and adopting ESG because, as we said, we know the benefits. We know how this helps, institutions, whether private or public. It helps everybody. And I mean, of course, I wouldn't want to spend time even talking about the benefit because I know we all know and we agree to that. Any thoughts on ISO standard for energy conservation, etc.? Once again, the standards are for our guidance. They provide you with the principles, they provide you with the tools. I think that the concept of energy conservation itself is something that we all agree to. But what I'm probably more excited about when I look at the ISO standard for energy conservation has to do more with, how you can realistically do that in as far as processes are concerned. So let me use the manufacturing industry again. I may be interested in all the talk about energy conservation, but how do I practically do this? It is not the usual switching off lights and things that we do at home that we all grew up to. This is a manufacturing plant that has to use energy, that has to use power to do its production. Some of the industries are even probably more energy intensive than others. If you look at those of you who are in the steel industry, there's so much energy requirement, for the production of steel and all those things. So for someone who owns a business in that sector, they will be interested in the specific things that they can do, the guidance, and that is what the ISO standard on energy conservation does. It provides you those useful areas to look at. Is it possible that if you probably don't have enough funds to change a whole line, a whole manufacturing line, or a whole batch plant, whatever it is, they would give you guidance as to probably aspects or processes that you can audit and you can retrofit. And these are some of the things that you get to learn when you do, when you look at the ISO standard for energy conservation. So it does provide you with very useful guidance. Are there economic revenue generation benefit that companies can truly get from? Trust me, there are. And I can, having been in the banking industry for a while, let me even use banks. I can speak of a bank that became very attractive to a lot of development financial institutions because of their commitment to implementation of ESG practices. And so this bank, which was a local bank, typically a local bank would do a lot more retail and probably raises a lot more funds, through retail activities, right? But this bank that I'm talking about was getting funding from Norfund, from FinFund, from Propaco. Propaco is the private wing of AFD, Agence Française de Développement. AFD itself, in fact, they had a SunRef facility from AFD just to do, green loans for energy efficiency, renewable energy. They had a funding from IFC just for green loans and also for women's banking. Yes, they had that for energy efficiency, for renewable energy, all because of demonstrated commitment to ESG principles. So trust me, these things work. And of course, the only way to also let people know about what you're doing is to report. And that will be another whole discussion that we can have another time. But that's one of the services Orlando's team also provides. So that's why we need to avail ourselves. But trust me, these things work. They rake in a lot of funding, a lot of investment that you never would have been able to buy yourself. So yes, the economic and there's revenue generation benefit for companies that truly get, I mean, that truly implements ESG practices. So finally, how can SMEs adopt ESG when they might be struggling under various economic challenges? Yes, that's a very important question, because that's for those of you here who probably work with the SMEs, you always get that feedback. Even for the simplest of things, they are struggling to raise funds, and then you come talking to us about ESG, right? It's interesting, but of course, I like one thing Orlando said. Let's start small. That particular SME business. What are the one thing I learned when I joined the commercial bank, in fact, it's an expression I never probably knew about, despite all the English I had read. But when I joined the financial institution, I learned about low-hanging fruit. They kept talking about low-hanging fruit, and I was wondering, why am I now hearing this expression for the first time? But I came to realize it was a useful expression. Let them start small. Let's see what it is that they can do without necessarily even making expenses. And of course, it starts with your audit and all of that. For the small SME that's complaining about inadequate funds has areas of waste in his processes, in their processes, in their activities. If you're able to help them identify that source of waste and to help turn around, you're able to now, retain a lot more cash for other things. So that's something I know we cannot exhaust. We cannot exhaust today, but let's always look at starting small. What can they begin to look at? There are a lot of these governance commitments that they don't need to pay for. Issues of transparency, issues of avoiding and bribery and corruption. I mean, issues of gender mainstreaming. These are things they can simply start without any cost. They just need to be deliberate, in their actions and to do, some of the things that as an expert you would want to guide them to do. So I think that in as much as funding some of these commitments can be a bit expensive sometimes, trust me, most of the things they need to start doing might not require funds. So I want to thank you so much.
Everybody, a huge
Yes,
round
thank
of
you so much,
applause.
Orlando.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you very much. A huge round of applause. Please help me, everybody. Help me to give Kobina a massive round of applause. Thank you very much for that, sir. I'm certain that we've even gained more in terms of how. I mean, there's no way I would have been able to answer all these questions. Um,
Orlando, you're my
uh,
boss now.
I mean, the way you went through answering these questions line by line without skipping or without missing a bit. As in, thank you very much for that, Kobina. A round of
Thank
applause,
you
everybody.
so much. Thank you so much
Uh,
for the opportunity.
Follow
Yeah.
him on LinkedIn. I'm certain that there's a lot you will gain just by, maybe looking for his tweets and whatever it is that he's writing out there. We're grateful to you because we wanted this perspective, wanted this particular global perspective that you've given. And even when you just mentioned the CPIA, I know I'd seen it a long time ago, but I didn't even know
Okay.
I can now get the country specific
Exactly.
is as it is. So I definitely have gained a lot from this particular session. So once again, everybody, a big round of applause and a big thank you to Kobina for us. Thank you very much, Kobina. We appreciate you, and we will definitely be calling you back. So even in that training, we'll beg of you to do some pro bono work and just share your global view and your global thoughts as it is. Thank you very much. We appreciate your time. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Doc. Thank you so much. I mean, when I got this invitation, I knew I knew I couldn't say no because your boys were on me. They were giving me pressure. And because I think that the only way we can have impact is to collaborate. And there's a lot of articles people put in the news these days. They talk about whether ESG will stay and all of that. And I think that people need to understand the concept. If they understand that it is basically going back to what our grandmothers used to do, if they understand that, when I was growing up, we used to conserve water in pots. We used to call them water coolers. I'm sure there are a lot of Gen Zs on this call who would not know. And it was a clay pot. That clay pot, in a way, um, um, used to purify the water. and you drink from this pot and you realize that, it was tasty, it was cool and all of that. Today, we've all switched to convenience. We're all doing bottled water and creating a plastic mess for everybody. So you realize that people, I mean, I quite remember what I would be saying to the market when I was younger, and I'll be given a basket. I'll be given a basket to go and put the things in it. Today, we have a lot of polythene bags, branded and beautifully looking, that everybody. So if you look at really the things we need to do, I know there are new technical areas that we need experts to help, but the things that we need to start doing are not the things that cost so much. Today, they will give you paper bags in the US, in Europe, and you have to pay more for it. But this is what we were doing, right? We would wrap the fresh fish in newspaper, old newspaper. We were repurposing, old newspapers and using them for other things. But I guess there's a world we live in now, and then we need to definitely go back. So sorry, I'm a bit of a talkative, but I hope I have disciplined myself enough on this call. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much, Kobina. Once again, we will definitely be reaching out to you when we're
Thank
actually
you.
having the session we're going to be having. So once again,
Thank you
thank you
so
very much.
much. Thank you so
God
much,
bless you.
Doc.
Thank you very much. All right.
Thank you.
I've
Thank
got
you.
one of my friends here, Mr. Dapo. Are you still here? Because I know that he's also done quite a bit of work, especially in different areas. So, Mr. Dapo, if you're here, if you don't mind, please just spend the next 5 minutes just sharing your own thoughts around ESG and why organizations are struggling. Mr. Dapo, please, very quickly. And he even has thoughts and opinion on how he in his own home is also doing ESG of some sort. Mr. Dapo,
Wow. Wow.
Hybrid, are you here? Are you here?
I'm here. Thank you so much.
Brilliant.
Thank you so much,
Thank you
Orlando.
very much.
I'm
Go ahead.
here. And thank you so much, Kobina. Nice meeting you. What an enriching session. I don't know what Orlando wants me to say right now because he possibly expecting some controversy from me because that's the thoughts around ESG is wide. It's like chasing a white goose chase. Is really heavy. It's very interesting. I think my thoughts here is the fact that I'm excited the way the international community is responding to this ESG of a thing because they different hula that is going on around us makes it very difficult for organization to even think about the ESG. So it is everybody likes the kind of aroma that you are perceiving from others that talk about the ESG, but nobody is actually going to the bottom to really check how much of work needs to be done in order for us to. I hesitated answering the question because just a few months ago, I think we're talking about it when we're doing the 26,000. And we're talking about what exactly will this full scope of ESG look like. It gives a very good direction because people can just decide to stay at one edge and
Okay, Dapo, you're okay. I think it's gone off completely. So everybody in the chat room, Mr. Dapo, when you come back, let us know. Everybody in the chat room, please. You will see 3 things, everyone, or 4 things. You will see the other webinars that we're going to be having between now and end of the year. So you see that in the chat room, everybody. Okay, Mr. Dapo, are you back? We couldn't hear you.
I just got back 1 minute, I'll be gone. So and
You're
so there's
breaking up, and then you okay. Go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, and somebody keeps saying no, environment sustainability is about environment. So when I have Kobina saying no, it's not about climate, because these are positions that people have already taken. And these positions also could also mean where the whole greasing of the elbows are coming from. So when you are getting the benefit from a certain angle, you are likely going to just face that side because that's where, like we say in Nigeria, that's where your bread and butter is coming from. But I'm very excited about what ISO has done right now because, I mean, I know, and Orlando said it very well. You don't need to ask anybody to prove it right now because they've now given us a framework. There can't be any so much discussion as to I can decide to go this way. I don't like health and safety. I like environment. And with that, I'm still doing well. Now we have a framework for ESG that can tell us very clearly your performance. We can see your scorecard right now in everything you're saying, because you have to show us that you are complying to those framework without necessarily proving something else that you have defined by yourself, which is very easy to do. I said this, the question myself, I mark it myself, and then I say I've passed. That era is gone now, and I think that's what ISO has done for us. I'm very excited about this. You know, he was saying, what do I want to learn? And I put the other two there. He knows why I put those two there, because definitely the world is about sustainability now and ESG, so we have to align. And I'm happy this structure is in place. It makes it easy for us to shout and tell you to your face, sorry, you are only lying to us. You are not telling the truth. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Doctor. Thank you. I mean, I wanted him to speak because I mean we've been in different situations and circumstances where we're having this ESG conversation with organizations, and you know some people think it's purely climate change, so their interpretation of ESG is climate change. Some people it's completely about health and safety. I mean, people come up with all sorts of ideas and thoughts in their minds, and now at least all of us we have one benchmark that we can all go to as a team. So once again, thank you very much, everyone. It's great to have had you all in this particular session. If you check in the chat room, we have a couple of other webinars that we are going to be holding. Some of them are going to be happening over the next couple of every month. We will always have about 2 different webinars every single month. I put some of the webinars in the chat room. I will share them on my screen in a second, and we're done. Once again, that's it. So we've got some training classes, but I think it's the webinar. So today, if you look to my right, isn't it? Today is February. We have done ESG today, this 26th of February. So then we're going to go back to our SDG goals, and we have one SDG goal every month. And hopefully by the middle of the year, we'll be having our SDG summit as it is. And then on the right, we also do a couple of other things, especially. So we're doing the IT disaster recovery now. We're also going to do climate change, I believe sometime in next month, the month of March, and a couple of other things. So once again, thank you very much, everyone, for being a part of this. We've got the training classes, so we're readjusting the dates. I'm sure we'll make it available to everybody. And thank you to the great team that is behind this work. So it's Samuel and Abigail that are in Accra that chased Kobina down to ensure that he showed up here. In the past, we've had Mr. Dapo, is Okyne, and I think Esther that also chased him down to ensure that he also show up here. I don't have all the knowledge and all the experience. It's always good to be able to bring the thoughts and the opinion of other people, especially people who do this work for real, into play. So once again, thank you very much, everyone. We appreciate your time, and we look forward to seeing you next month. So next month, once again, we're going to be having something on Goal 8, which is towards the end of the month, and we're also going to be doing something on disaster recovery, and we're also going to be doing something on climate change. So it's definitely a packed month, and we look forward to seeing all of you. I can imagine a lot of people will come back, especially the sustainability enthusiasts will come back also with regards to climate change as it is. Thank you very much. God bless you. Have a great remaining part of your day. We appreciate you all. Thank you. Thank you, Kobina. Appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Okay. Mr. Dapo, thank you very much. God bless you all. Thank you.